You are surrounded but not seen. That strange weight in your chest, like something's pressing in on your ribs, isn't physical. It's not a heart condition or low blood sugar. It's what it feels like to be starved for meaning in a world that keeps flooding you with connection. You know this already, even if you've never said it out loud. It's that moment when your phone buzzes again, another notification, another name, but it still feels like nobody really knows you. Nobody really sees you, not the way you wish they would. You can scroll endlessly and still feel forgotten. Open 100 apps and still feel ignored. You've got more contacts than you can count, but when you're lying there at night, it's just you. You and that growing silence under all the noise. The worst part isn't even being alone. It's being alone while constantly surrounded by people. That's what makes this modern loneliness so cruel. It's not loud, it doesn't announce itself like heartbreak or betrayal. It creeps in slowly, dressed like normalcy. Because it's everywhere now, and nobody wants to admit it. Everyone's pretending they're fine, posting smiles, sharing highlights, typing LOL when their face is blank and tired. It's not the absence of connection that's breaking people, it's the presence of hollow ones. You weren't made for this kind of living. You weren't designed to spend your days pretending. And yet, it's what we've all learned to do. We learn to perform instead of speak, to present instead of express. And even when we do share something real, we're met with likes instead of listening, algorithms instead of empathy, echo chambers instead of understanding. You can scream online, and still no one hears your soul. Kierkegaard called it the sickness unto death, that despair born not from physical pain, but from disconnection from the self. And that's what you're really feeling, isn't it? Not just distance from others, but distance from who you are, or used to be, or hope you'd become. Because when connection is shallow, the self begins to rot in silence. And yet, here you are, still pretending it's fine, still opening apps, hoping for something deeper than last time, still carrying this ache like it's just part of being alive. But what if it's not supposed to be? What if this loneliness isn't natural, but learned? Installed in us like software, bit by bit, every time we were taught that being vulnerable was a weakness. Every time we were told to move on instead of sit with our pain. Every time we reached out and were met with silence, or worse, indifference. No wonder you scroll for hours. No wonder you crave any sign you still matter. We're not addicted to screens. We're addicted to feeling less alone, even if it's just for a second. The truth is, modern loneliness doesn't come from solitude. It comes from not being known. Solitude can be peaceful, even sacred when you feel loved, but isolation wrapped in performance? That's a slow suffocation. That's what's been eating away at you. But because the worst loneliness is not when no one is around, it's when people are all around and you still feel invisible. You remember moments, don't you? When you felt real? When someone looked you in the eye and really saw you? When a friend listened, not to reply, but to understand. Those moments are rare now, treasured, because most people have forgotten how to listen, or maybe they were never taught. They were too busy surviving, building walls, curating feeds, keeping busy so they wouldn't have to feel. But not you. You've started to notice. You feel things too deeply to numb them completely. That ache in your chest isn't a flaw. It's a signal. You're not broken. You're awake. You're noticing the absence of something that's supposed to be here. Love, depth, presence, truth. We call it loneliness, but maybe that word is too small. What you're feeling is grief. Grief for the conversations that never happened, the embraces you never got, the vulnerability that was met with silence, the parts of you that you had to hide to be accepted. It's not in your head. And it's not just you. Millions are walking around, faces lit by screens, eyes hollow, hearts quietly breaking. We've mistaken communication for communion, shared pixels for shared presence. We've forgotten how to be with each other. And even worse, we've forgotten how to be with ourselves. When was the last time you sat in silence without checking your phone? When did you last let your thoughts drift without filling the space with noise? When did you last feel whole without anyone else needing to validate it? Kierkegaard warned that the crowd is untruth, that when we lose ourselves in the crowd, online or offline, we risk forgetting who we really are. And maybe that's what happened. Maybe this hyper-connected world made you so focused on being seen that you forgot how to just be, to be still, to be present, to be whole without performing. It's not your fault. The system is designed this way. It's profitable for you to feel lonely. Lonely people click more, buy more, engage more. So you're kept hungry, kept scrolling, kept searching for something you were never meant to find in pixels. But the solution isn't deleting everything. It's remembering who you are beneath it all. It's creating moments where you can be real again. It's whispering truths to yourself in the dark, even if no one else is listening. It's sitting with the ache instead of silencing it. Because sometimes the ache is trying to tell you something. That you miss depth, that you're starving for intimacy that can't be measured in messages, that you're done pretending, that you're done performing, that you want someone not to talk to, but to feel with, that you want to be held, not with arms, but with presence, attention, safety. And it starts with you, not in a self-help cliche way, but in the quiet rebellion of honesty, the radical act of not numbing yourself, the daily decision to sit with your own truth, even when it hurts. Yes, you're lonely, but that doesn't make you broken. It makes you human in a system designed to dehumanize. You still have a voice, even if it trembles. You still have stories to tell, even if no one's asking. You still have value, even if you're not trending. Don't let this world convince you otherwise. Stay with this feeling. Not forever, just long enough to hear what it's saying. You're still here, and that means something. You're still reaching, still hoping, still human. And in this cold, hyper-connected world, that's no small thing. Maybe you haven't said it out loud, but you've felt it for a long time. That quiet craving, not for more people, but for more realness. You don't want thousands of followers. You want one person who truly sees you, who listens when you speak and doesn't just wait for their turn to reply, who sits in silence with you when words aren't enough. Someone who's not afraid of your depth, your contradictions, your scars. You've played the game. You've posted at the right times. You've tried to be interesting, attractive, clever, but none of it filled that space inside you. The one that doesn't want attention, it wants connection. You know the difference. Deep down, you always have. You can tell when someone's really present, it's in their eyes. The way they pause before answering, the way they stay when things get uncomfortable instead of running away. You've craved that kind of presence, but so often you're met with distraction or deflection. People who can talk all day but say nothing. People who nod but don't hear you. People who scroll while you speak. You start pulling back, you say less, you show less. Not because you don't want to be known, but because it hurts too much when you try and still feel alone. And slowly your world gets smaller, your voice gets quieter, your spirit gets dimmer, and nobody notices. That's the most devastating part. You can fade into the background and the world just keeps spinning, and you start to wonder if maybe you were too much, or not enough, or both at once. You second-guess your needs. You shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never built to hold you. But let me say this clearly, there is nothing wrong with you for wanting depth, for wanting conversation that feels like it matters, for wanting intimacy that's slow and safe and full of soul. You're not needy. You're honest. Kierkegaard believes that despair isn't just about pain. It's about the disconnection from who you are at your core. And this loneliness, this ache, it's not about numbers or followers. It's about a fracture between your inner world and the outer one. It's about the disconnect between the masks we wear and the soul we bury underneath. You've felt that tension, the part of you that smiles in photos but cries when the light's off, the part of you that jokes in groups but goes home feeling like no one really knows what's going on inside, the part of you that craves touch but is afraid of being touched too deeply. You've been taught to numb, to distract, to stay busy. You've been told that if you just work harder, look better, post more, things will get better. But has it? Or has it made the silence even louder? Because here's what nobody tells you: loneliness doesn't always look like sitting alone. Sometimes it looks like being surrounded by people and still feeling like you don't belong, like your real self is watching from behind glass. And there's grief in that, a grief that doesn't come with funerals or closure, just a slow, aching realization that most people only ever meet the version of you they're comfortable with, not the version you really are. So you start to forget who that real self even is. You mold, you adjust, you perform, until one day you wake up and feel like a stranger to your own reflection. That's the crisis, not just of loneliness, but of identity. And no amount of messages, matches, or mentions can fix that. Because what you need isn't more, it's real connection, real conversations, real presence. The kind where someone notices the crack in your voice and doesn't brush past it. Where silence doesn't feel awkward, it feels sacred. Where your pain isn't something to fix, but something to sit beside. That kind of connection is rare, but it's possible. And it starts with you being honest with yourself, with your needs, with your longing, with your truth. Not everyone can meet you there. Some people will turn away, not because you're too much, but because they're too afraid of their own emptiness, their own silence, their own reflection. But some people will stay. Some people will recognize the depth in your voice because they've drowned in it too. They'll speak softly because they've learned how easily a heart can break. They'll show up with honesty because they've known what it's like to live behind a mask. But to find them, you have to stop performing. You have to risk being seen, even when it's terrifying, especially when it's terrifying. Because connection without vulnerability is just noise. And you're done with noise, aren't you? You want stillness, intimacy, truth. You want to stop hiding, and you can. That doesn't mean blasting your pain across social media. It means choosing truth in small, quiet ways. Saying, "I'm lonely," even if it makes your voice shake. Asking someone how they really are and staying to hear the answer. Sitting in your own silence without trying to escape it. And in that space, something begins to shift. You start to remember what matters. You start to reclaim your own presence. You start to realize that you don't need to be everywhere, liked by everyone, constantly on. You just need to be real with yourself, with a few people who matter, with the moments that ask for your full attention. You don't need more noise, you need more truth. And sometimes truth starts in loneliness, because it's in the quiet, aching moments that you finally hear your own voice again. It's in the absence of shallow connection that you begin to crave depth. It's in the loneliness that you become brave enough to say, "I want something more." And that is not weakness, that is your soul waking up. That is the start of something holy. The loneliness you feel isn't the end, it's the doorway. It's what happens right before something honest begins. Before you stop settling, before you start asking better questions, before you start listening to your own heart like it has something worth saying, because it does. It always did. You just got used to muting it. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that connection was about proximity, about access. As long as people were around, you weren't alone. But you've learned painfully that loneliness isn't solved by bodies in the room. It's solved by presence, by resonance. And those things can't be forced. They can only be found slowly through shared truth. You're allowed to want more, to want connection that doesn't drain you, relationships that aren't one-sided, conversations that don't leave you emptier than you came. You're allowed to leave spaces where you feel invisible. You're allowed to protect your peace. Because the kind of loneliness you carry isn't superficial. It's not about boredom. It's about starvation for meaning, for safety, for belonging, for someone to come close without flinching, for a moment that doesn't need a filter, for a life that feels whole, even when no one's watching. And that's not too much to ask. What if the thing you're craving isn't out there waiting to be found, but in here waiting to be remembered? What if connection begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself? Because that's what this world teaches you to do. Abandon your real feelings to stay likable. Abandon your needs to stay agreeable. Abandon your voice to keep the peace. But the real you, the quiet you, the broken you, the deep you, that's the version that craves connection. That's the version that's real enough to love and be loved, not despite the loneliness, but because of it. We keep trying to cure our emptiness with company, but maybe what we need is communion with ourselves first, to stop seeing silence as failure, to stop seeing solitude as punishment, to start asking what our loneliness is trying to show us. Because loneliness doesn't mean you're unloved. It means you're aware of how much love matters. And maybe it's showing you who's missing, or maybe it's reminding you of the kind of love you've been giving away without receiving in return. You don't have to earn closeness. You don't have to shrink to be chosen. You don't have to beg to be seen. You are already worthy of the kind of connection that holds you gently. And it might not come quickly. It might not look how you thought it would, but it will come. Not through pretending, not through performing, but through moments of truth. The kind of truth you've started to feel again. Beneath the numbness, beneath the scrolling. You don't need everyone. You need a few people who see you without needing you to entertain them. A few souls who recognize you beneath the surface. And those kinds of relationships are rare, but they're real and they're worth waiting for. But first, you have to stop apologizing for your ache. You have to stop treating your need for intimacy as something shameful, because it's not. Wanting to be known is not weakness, it's wisdom. Kierkegaard believed that the self is a relation that relates itself to itself. And maybe that's what this loneliness is about, not the loss of others, but the loss of relationship with yourself. You've spent so much time trying to be seen, but have you seen yourself lately? Not the version in the mirror, not the curated feed, but the tired, tender, hopeful you that still believes something deeper is possible. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for the right things in a world that's forgotten their worth. Honesty, intimacy, presence, stillness. You're not broken. You're aware. And that awareness might hurt, but it's also the beginning of healing. Because once you've tasted the emptiness of shallow connection, you can't go back. You won't go back. You'll start to crave quiet mornings over loud performances, eye contact over small talk, being held over being followed. You'll start to recognize the difference between attention and affection, between distraction and care. You'll start to say no more often, not out of fear, but out of reverence for your time, for your energy, for your heart. Because this loneliness, it's been teaching you all along. It's been peeling back the noise to show you what matters. It's been emptying you out so you can finally be filled with something true. It's been breaking the illusion that more connection always means deeper connection. And now that you know, you can't unknow. Now that you feel, you can't unfeel. And that's your power. You're not lost. You're on your way back to yourself, to others, to the kind of life that doesn't just look full but feels full. So if tonight you feel that ache again, if you look around and wonder why it still feels so empty, don't rush to escape it. I'm staying. Listen, there's wisdom in the silence. There's strength in the stillness. And maybe, just maybe, you're not alone in your loneliness. Maybe someone else is listening right now, aching the same way, hoping for the same connection. And maybe your truth is what will help them feel less alone too. Maybe you're not just waiting for connection, you're becoming it. Right here, in this moment, in your honesty, in your heart. You're not invisible. You're still here, and you still matter.